A long time ago, Crohor had been uprooted from his place in Castletown, Kenna, and dragged kicking and screaming by his parents to Cork. He had left the beautiful wide fields of West Cork and the little copse of trees there, where the animals were so trusting and friendly that the rabbits came right up to him and looked into his eyes and down into his soul. He had lived in Cork so long now that they had even changed his name. It was too hard to say Crohor up here, so they called him Connor. It had started at school. His spirit had been weighed down, and one day as he was walking through the throngs of the Cold Quay, sitting on a windowsill in front of Dervish, he saw an old woman. It looked as if it was hard for her to see. Her eyes were half closed, but when she saw him, her eyes sprang open, and she looked way younger than she had looked a few minutes previous. "Ah, and Fia Bon," she said. "Fia Bon." "No," he said, "my name is Crohor." And he surprised himself at calling himself by his old name. But she looked at him and she said, "And Fia Bon, and Fia Bon." And she took his left hand and she kind of squashed the fat little part just in the middle of your hand. And somehow it gave him comfort and changed his day. And he felt happier in himself. And he walked up the old rock steps to where his little house was. And he got a kind of an urge for soda bread. He hadn't thought about soda bread in so long. He pulled all of the ingredients out of his cupboard and the big brown mixing bowl that had been his mother's, and he made the bread, and it tasted lovely, of old memories and old nourishments. And he slathered on in generous amounts the blackberry jam. He'd collected the Smera Dova himself earlier in the year. Oh, this lockdown, it was weighing heavily on him. But the bread helped, and he went to bed. And he dreamt of long ago in West Cork and Castletown, Kenna, and wide open spaces and roaming. And then he heard a word in his dream, An Kyo Triachta, the magic mist, An Kyo Triachta. And he could see it curling up from the River Lee and coming into the Lee fields itself. And it called him, and it called him so strongly that he woke up, and as if still in his dream, he pulled on his trousers and his heavy coat, and he left his little cottage, and he walked down the rock steps towards the River Lee, and outwards down the western road towards the Lee fields themselves. There was nobody out, for it was locked down. And when he got to the Lee fields, he could see the thickening mist coming out of the Lee and curling across the field towards him. And behind him, he could see the old tree calling him, and the river behind it, going slower now than it had ever gone before. And as he watched the tree almost melting into the mist, he saw her on Fia Bon, the white deer, Fia Den Kyo. She was the deer of the mist, as white as the moon with green eyes. And she called to him. She said no words, but in his head she heard him. Crohor, Mokushla, Taranshaw. Crohor, Mokushla, Taranshaw. Connor, I love you so much that even the blood in my veins pumps because of you. The old word, Mokushla, which means you are my pulse. He started to walk towards her, and as he did, the mist played around the edges of Anfia Bawn, and she turned into a beautiful young woman with a long white shift dress. Cror, Makushla, she invited, and he went and put his hand in hers as if their two souls had known one another these many years past. Hello, my love, he said, and she said, come away with me now. Come away with me into the lands of the mist, to Tiernan Og, until a gentler time kisses Era once more. And so he stepped into the mist.